You're watching Anglia Television. Now, the main evening news with Trevor MacDonald at 10 o'clock.
From ITN, News at 10 with Trevor MacDonald.
Major returns for his crucial vote on Europe. Group collapse threatens more high street names. Angry fans ask, why were we imprisoned here? And why Damon Hill is confined to the passenger seat. Good evening. The Prime Minister did a balancing act in the Commons today in the big debate on Europe. He didn't promise a referendum before Britain signed up for a single European currency, but he left the possibility open and suggested he would favour it. MPs are voting now on the Labour motion, which says government policy in Europe isn't good for Britain. Let's go now to Westminster and to our political editor, Michael Brunson.
Well, it does look as though the Prime Minister's speech has done the trick. No one is now seriously suggesting that Labour is going to win its motion. His talk about being wary of a single currency certainly has made its mark, and he also said that the hugely important decision about whether to go for a single currency would probably need, or may well need, a referendum, and that has left the whipless Tory Euro rebels a lot happier. Now, we can cross to the Commons now. There you see the members filing out to do the voting. We'll have to see the actual impact that the Prime Minister's speech has made, but it already seems certain, in addition, that no Conservative, with or without the whip, has voted for Labour's motion, though some of course, perhaps are still abstaining. Now, a good deal still depends, actually, in the final voting figures, about what the Ulster Unionists, a bit of a mystery about their position, what they're actually doing at this moment about that Labour motion. Proposing Labour's motion, Tony Blair seemed almost to anticipate defeat. It was policy that mattered, not party arithmetic, he said, as he mounted a vigorously effective attack on the divisions over Europe in the Cabinet.
There may and will be debate as to what the policy should be, but there must be a policy. There is only one choice, to be at the heart of Europe or in retreat from it. Both are coherent positions, but they take the country in different directions. What is unacceptable is to have no direction at all.
Mr. Major's lack of leadership had meant that Britain was not leading in Europe as it should.
It should be leading in Europe. And it can lead in Europe, but only under a different government.
Replying, Mr. Major said that leadership often meant being isolated to fight for the right sort of Europe. In an effective and often punchy speech, the Prime Minister was still studiously even-handed, carefully backing the Chancellor, for example.
With one important qualification, I do believe that it is possible to move forward to monetary union without necessarily moving forward to political union. But the qualification depends upon the nature and the style of monetary union, and I will be dealing with those points in a moment.
Despite the laughter, Mr. Major set out the arguments for and against a single currency, the most important economic decision this century, he called it. Then, choosing his words with care, he said,
Now, the House knows from the Maastricht negotiations and the opt-out that I negotiated there that I am wary of a single currency for these economic reasons. Wary of its economic impact, wary of the serious political and constitutional implications as well.
As he ended, Mr. Major said the choice was between his hard-headed European policy and Labour's federalist posturings.
Madam Speaker, it should not be a difficult choice, and I invite the House and I invite all my honourable friends to make that choice tonight.
Cheers from most of his honourable friends, but a dismissive response from the Liberal Democrats.
He has become a Prime Minister permanently impaled upon the fence, because he dare not get off it.
But some of the Tory whipless ones liked what they'd heard.
It was a good speech. I was quite encouraged by it. I don't think he likes the single currency.
The Prime Minister made a number of mentions about the possibility of a referendum, which you might say is a step down the road that we would like to see him go.
But then a new threat from a Tory who does have the whip.
I would not be able to say that I do support the government's European policy. I won't vote against the government, but I shall almost certainly abstain on that issue tonight?
Well, it's still very uncertain about how things are going. I've just been told, for example, that Norman Lamont, the former Chancellor, has gone into the opposition lobby. That looks as though he is voting for the Labour amendment. On the other hand, the talk downstairs in the lobbies is that there'll be a narrow government victory of 6 or 7 or something like that, helped, I may say, by the arrival of Geoffrey Higgins, the very sick Tory MP. He's very bravely come in to vote for the government. And depending, of course, what the LC unionists are actually doing, it's still not clear what they're doing. It is quite possible in the end that the government majority may be quite a healthy one, perhaps, into double figures. But it is all a bit fluid, and as I say, with Mr Cash abstaining and with Norman Lamont, perhaps, as we now seem certain, voting for the Labour motion, well, we'll have to wait and see what the actual figures are just in a few moments' time.
And of course, we go back to Westminster to hear the outcome of that vote. Pentos, parent company of Dillon's Bookshops and the stationery chain Ryman's, collapsed today with debts of £50 million. Dillon's and Ryman's employed 3,000 people between them. Our business correspondent Mark Webster explains what went wrong.
The latest in a line of high street casualties, the 149 Dillon's Bookshops are expected to be snapped up despite mounting debts and heavy losses over the past 2 years. But the future for Ryman is less certain, and analysts believe, though it will be sold, many of the stores will close.
The future for Ryman's is fairly uncertain, with a lot of competition coming into the marketplace. Dillon's is a stronger brand, but having said that, it still has these problems with high-cost rents, and that's going to make it far less attractive to a prospective buyer.
The problems at Pentos began in the 80s, when they expanded rapidly, renting expensive high street stores. Come the recession, rents remained high, profit margins were squeezed, and business was sluggish. Up to last year, Pentos owned 3 famous high street names: the Athena chain with 163 shops across the country, Ryman the Stationers with 109 stores, and Dillon's, also trading as Claude Gill and Hatchards. Last year, Athena went into receivership, Ryman's lost £4 million in 6 months, and Dillon's £13 million, although some improvement was expected. Now Athena's being closed down, Ryman's future hangs in the balance, and Dillon's may be the only survivor. Dillon's wasn't having much luck at all today. There'd been acrimonious exchanges about why the group's collapsed. Its founder, ousted 18 months ago, blamed the present management.
All the people who ran the businesses were fired, and new people were brought in, mainly consultants. They've had consultants crawling all over the place. They spent £10 million in the last 12 months on consultants and on new projects, most of which have since been aborted.
But with Athena's closure and today's failure, the new management in turn blamed him for creating what they called a big black financial hole. But analysts also see this as part of a broader change in shopping in Britain. They say the imminent disappearance of Rumbelows and the takeover of Texas by Sainsbury's is part of that process. And as more and more out-of-town shops open, they expect there to be more victims in the high street. A sign of how things are changing is that Dillon's new owner is likely to be Thorn EMI, the very group which has just shut down Rumbelows. Mark Webster, News at 10, The City.
The Singapore finance minister shut the door today on the sort of dealing which bankrupted Barings Bank. He announced new rules to stop the same person heading both the dealing section of a bank and the settlement section, the back room. The Barings trader Nick Leeson, who bolted last Thursday, was still missing today. ITN's Hal Jones reports from Singapore.
Singapore's papers are still putting Nick Leeson on the front page, but unconfirmed reports have placed him all over the Far East. The money markets are making a buoyant recovery. The dealers painfully remember what some are calling the Leeson effect.
Of course, everybody shocked because that kind of thing is incredible. Because we should have such kind of internal control, so that we can imagine how the things happen in the Barings.
In Singapore, Leeson's colleagues are keeping quiet about the crash.
Do Barings employees have any information about what's going on?
Privately, some say the company tells them nothing.
Mr. Bax, could we have a word, please, sir?
No comment either from Barings' bosses. But Singapore's finance minister was under pressure to say something.
You'll heard soon enough.
He didn't know of the difficulties Barings were having on the Simex Stock Exchange and announced new rules to stop it happening again.
Simex will require member firms to ensure that a head of dealing section should not take charge of the settlement section. that proprietary traders should not handle customer business.
In other words, just what Nick Leeson did at Bearings. Little sign of gloom on the markets. On the trading floor, Bearings fever seems to be a 48-hour bug. As the investigation into the Bearings crash widens, the full extent of the damage it's done is still beyond the market's reckoning, and the man who could explain it all still beyond the grasp of the authorities. Howell Jones, News at 10, Singapore.
ITN has learnt that the sale of the corporate finance arm of Bearings will be completed tonight to the Dutch banking group ABN. The other suitor had been National Westminster. Deals for 2 other parts of Bearings are expected to be completed by Friday. Still to come on News at 10, that Commons vote on Europe. We'll bring it to you live. Driving fast is what he does best, so why was Damon Hill in the passenger seat today? And the Chelsea fans' fury at Belgian police's tough tactics.
9 hours in an old warehouse, no food, no water, no nothing.
Welcome back. The result of that crucial Europe vote is expected any moment now in the Commons. So we're going straight back there now and to our political correspondent, Peter Murphy.
Thank you very much. And here in the Commons, as always on these occasions, the Commons is absolutely packed and a certain amount of confusion as, of course, MPs are waiting to find out exactly what the result is. MPs have voted on either side and they've come back in, and we suspect that it's a government victory. The estimate here has been anything between 3 and 8 that they're going to win by, but it's quite clear that the Ulster Unionists, both the official Ulster Unionists and the Democratic Unionist Party, voted with the Labour Party. They voted against the government. Now, this is a Labour motion they're voting on, so those voting for the Labour motion will be voting aye, those against will be voting no. So if the government is to win, it'll be the noes that will be ahead. We're waiting for the tellers, they're the government whips who do the counting, to come back, and we will know from the position that they're standing which side has indeed won. The tellers stand at the mace, which is immediately in front of the Speaker. You can probably just about make that out in the middle of the picture. Unfortunately, on these occasions, the television cameras are not allowed to move. They have to be static, and you're not allowed to have close-up shots of anybody. So I'm afraid you have to make do with this picture until the tellers start coming back and give us the result. The tellers, as I say, stand right in the centre, in front of the Madam Speaker, in front of the mace, and those standing on the extreme right are the ones who have won. And I've seen some of the government whips, or some of the whips trying to get back in. Yes, Ray Powell, one of the Labour whips, coming back in. They will go up, first of all, Ray Powell and Sidney Chapman from the government side. They will go up and pass over the result to the clerk. The clerk will then hand it up to the Speaker, and the tellers return to their place and read out that result. And the tellers who've come in, first of all, probably from the opposition side, which means they've counted through the numbers rather faster. And I see the other tellers coming in, David Lightbound, another one of the government whips, passing in his result to the clerk. They are now being written down, handed up to Madam Speaker, and the 4 whips, the 4 tellers in this vote, are coming into place. And the government side are waving their order papers. They clearly have won.
Members, please move back now as far behind the bar as possible. Or resume their seats.
And it's David Lightbound, the government whip, to read the result.
Order.
So the government has won.
The ayes to the right, 314. The noes to the left, 390.
So, cheers. The government won by 5, very narrow, not quite as large as some government ministers had hoped. And now the Speaker will repeat that result.
To the right, 314. The noes to the left, 319. The noes have it. Order unlocked. The question is that the proposed words be there added. As men in that opinion say aye. Contrary, no.
So the government had a victory by 5 votes on that first division, and now they're moving into a second division. This second division is on a government amendment. The government amendment attacks Labour's policy on Europe. This is Peter Murphy in the studio, handing you, in the commentary box, should I say, in the Commons, handing you back to the studio.
Thank you, Peter Murphy. Let's go now to our political editor, Michael Brunson. Michael, a little closer than expected, perhaps?
Yes. Well, I think we see there the effect of the news that I was reporting earlier, that Norman Lamont, the Chancellor, had decided to cross into the Labour lobby. And also we've got the unexpected abstention by Bill Cash. Just a reminder of the vote. This is on the Labour motion. There were 314 votes for, but against 319, so the government wins by 5 votes. We'd got the abstentions by the whipless ones that we expected: Richard Boddy, Teddy Taylor, Tony Marlow, Theresa Gorman and John Wilkinson. And all 9 official unionists voted with Labour. There had been mystery all day exactly what they were going to be doing, but in the end they voted with Labour, and that of course helped to narrow down the government size of the government majority. But Mr Major will be satisfied enough. After all, it was a very high-risk strategy that he went for. It was his decision that he personally would intervene here. He's got his win by 5 votes, where he will certainly say 5 votes is enough.
Michael Brunson, thank you. Chelsea soccer fans were landing back in England today, still smarting from the heavy-handed treatment they got from Belgian police last night. Hundreds of them, even some with expensive tickets, never saw the game against Bruges. They were locked up for the night and put on ferries home. The Belgian authorities made no apologies. They said today they did what they had to. Our Europe correspondent Jonathan Monroe reports.
This was the scene last night in the police warehouse converted into a compound for those the Belgians described as unruly. But